and if you're looking straight at me that whole time.
Okay.
That looks good. So, so he's got truck driving first, but then backstory. Do you want to start with that? You just tell your story from wherever you want it.
I think it leads into the truck driving.
Yeah.
I think it will.
Again, we're already changing the script.
Yeah.
We're changing it.
Because as you know, the years go, like as we get through it, it eventually turns to transport and driving trucks and blah blah blah. So it'll cover that, I think.
You pick up from wherever you want the story to begin.
Yeah.
Like if you're in your teens.
Yeah. Well, probably as a young fella when it first come to being on the streets, I guess probably the starting point, isn't it? When I was 13. Yeah.
So if the question was, how'd you end up living on the streets?
Yeah. Yeah. So go now, we're
right.
Yeah. When I was 12 years old, I had my first encounter with the law by being a young little mischief little bugger, and me and a couple of mates knocked off a few push bikes. Had a visit from the police that night, and my mum was pretty disappointed, as she would be with a 12-year-old boy getting into a bit of trouble early. And then I just turned 13, and she sat me down at the table, and growing up, I knew my dad wasn't my real dad. And I remember him coming onto the scene when I was 3 or 4 or something like that. So, always called him by his first name, always called mum. And then she sat me down at 13 and told me that she wasn't my real mum. And I don't know when's a good time to tell someone that. I don't know. At that time, it probably wasn't in hindsight, it probably wasn't the greatest time to tell me, but it put a lot of things into perspective, that's for sure. Just that love feeling, I guess. There's love and there's love, and she loved me, and she was a great lady, and she did whatever she could to do what she had to do, raising someone else's child. She got dumped with me when I was 16 months old by my real mum, and she was with my real dad, and for 6 months, a year or something, and then he walked out and left me with her. So an amazing effort to raise someone's child that she didn't have to do. But getting on to that is that so that rocked me. That really rocked me. I still get shivers now when I think about that. I'll never forget that conversation and how I felt straight away. I was just shattered, bawled my eyes out, disbelief. And to the point where she showed me my birth certificate to show me that, this is true. Not that she had any reason to bullshit about it either, but, that's what happened. And we're in the process of moving house. And I sort of felt like I was in the way after that. I felt like I was someone else's problem, and it wasn't a good feeling. It really wasn't a good feeling. And I'd snuck out a few times with mates on weekends, and so I thought I had an idea of what it's like to be out there on your own. And we were moving house. We moved to this house, and it's probably about 3 months after she told me, thereabouts. I can't remember the exact time frame, but it was about 3 months after she told me that our dog got out. My stepdad was like, "Come with me, we'd go look for the dog." And it was a big national park, like bushland everywhere, just a bitumen road going up the middle. And he stopped and said, "Wait here," and went off to the right to go, thought he spotted the dog, and I watched him disappear into the bush, and I just sat there, and it was just a real time. I can't even explain it. I was just like, I've got to go. So I opened up the passenger door. I was 13 years old, winter, pissing down bloody rain, had trackies and jumper on, and I just took off, went into the bush. He's come back, he had a V8 Land Cruiser, so I could hear him tearing around. Like they knew I'd been sneaking out before. It wasn't like breaking news to them. And I heard his car for a good couple of hours until it got dark, pitch black, and I just hid behind a rock about 500 metres off the road for the whole time. And then the reality sort of started kicking. It's like, what am I going to do here? 13 years old, it's pretty young. And so I went up to this train bridge that I knew was up the road. I went up there and stayed in that for the night in the train tunnel, sorry. Freezing cold, really contemplating, what am I doing here? And I knew they went to work the next day, so they went to work. I went back home, got a feed, packed a bag, got my birth certificate for some reason. And then I thought, I need my birth certificate. I've still got the same birth certificate today. From that birth certificate has done some serious kilometres, and I left, and I went up to the train bridge. I had my blanket. I got a cigarette lighter. Went up there, light fires in the tunnel. kept warm at night. During the day, I would walk into Midland, which was probably about an hour and a half walk into Midland, on the scavenge for food. I wasn't, going through bins and everything like that. I had ways of getting money to get food, whether it was cashing in Coke bottles back those days and Coke crates, and then walked back up there and did that for a couple of months. And I thought, and I was getting pulled over by the police. I was getting into a bit of trouble, and I thought, I can't stay here. I wasn't telling mates I was on the streets. I was too embarrassed, too ashamed. I'd go stay at their house on the weekend, and then they think I was just going home. It was a bit weird. But I didn't want anyone to know about it. Just embarrassed more than anything. So anyway, after a couple of months, I moved into the city, went into this and lived on the streets in the city, getting put into boarding houses and Red Cross and Salvos and police were pulling me up continually, and then with no fixed address. So a lot of times I get pulled over, no fixed address, because I didn't have anywhere to say where I was living. They would take me home, which was just by law. 13, 14 years old, they're just doing their job. But the first police encounter I had, and this I learned that to respect the police pretty early. I broke into the high school. It was belting down rain. Like I said, it was in winter. It was belting down rain, so I broke into the high school that I used to go to and grabbed a gym mat and took it up into one of these empty rooms that was up on the top level and just went to sleep on there. And I woke up with a torch in my face and obviously triggered an alarm. And torch in the face, he's put the torch down, he's put the gun straight at my head, this copper, and he's a bloody giant, he's 7 foot tall. He goes, "Don't run." I said, "We're cool, mate, we're cool." No. So I learned to respect the police pretty quickly. And those were the days where night shift coppers were put on night shift because they were too psycho to go on day shift. That was the rumour going around the streets of, you don't stuff with the night shift coppers because they'll belt you. And did cop a couple floggings from them, but It gave me a lot of respect straight away, as in they don't muck around, these coppers. If you're gonna be a smart ass or whatever, you're gonna get a belting. And so anyway, they pick me up, take me back home regularly. I'd last 3 days, 4 days tops, and out again, gone. And that went on for the whole time. I was homeless from 13 to 21, basically, or 20 when I was in Perth. I left Perth when I was 20. That was sleeping in parks, toilets, bloody caravan parks, just anywhere, bushes in the middle of Perth. To this day I walk through Adelaide, Gawler or whatever, and the first thing I see when I see something is, oh, I would have slept there. It's still ingrained in your head of I would have slept there. That would have been a good spot to sleep, sort of thing. So it was just finding places to sleep, finding places to keep warm, nicking blankets off clotheslines, clothes off clotheslines. Again, I had ways. I was never that homeless of going through bins and that sort of desperate need. I always found a way to get some money, whether it was obviously breaking the law, but and got caught numerous times breaking the law, sent to juvenile detention centre at 15 years old for 6 months for doing stupid shit, stealing cars, blah, blah, blah. And then I come out of a stint out of juvenile and I got caught for something else, went back to the courts, and the court said to me, "You got a choice here of going to this place called Chesterfield House or you're going back to juvenile." And Chesterfield House was a 3-month stay, like a rehabilitation sort of, like troubled youths go. So I took the Chesterfield House, obviously, and that stuck with me. That wasn't a changing point in my life, because I went through way worse shit later on in my life than what I have been talking about. But it was actually being in a place where, no, they didn't judge you, but you're all there together. You're all, you know what I mean? You're all troubled youth. And they had 3 people working there, a lady and 2 blokes that were just the most amazing people, and would listen to your story, listen to you and not judge you and try and help you. And it was just, I had a great time there. I really did. I had an amazing time there. I did a 6-week course with the SAS, New Zealand SAS people there, with all the kids that were there. It was a government funded thing. And we got sent out in the middle of the bush with a compass. SAS would just drop us off out of a van and said, "Head north for 25 kilometres. You'll cross a stream. Here's an empty water bottle. You'll cross a stream. Fill up that water bottle because you're going to need it." It was survival, and it was, and it taught us a lot. and 25Ks was our camping spot. We all met there. It was in 3 different groups. We all met there. You know, we stayed there a week. Then we went out on a ship for a week, and then we did mechanics for a week. So it was just a really interesting time of my life. I really enjoyed it. I was really disappointed when it came to an end. But so yeah, then we come out of Chesterfield House and just straight back into the shithole again. Like straight back into trouble. At Chesterfield House, the 3 months I was there, not once did we break the law. Not once. There was no need. Like we'll go food shopping. We'll do everything. Like, you know, they were teaching us life skills. But that's all great. But you get taught these life skills and then you get put straight back out into the street. Those life skills don't mean jack shit. They seriously don't. Your life skills, we knew we were doing shopping on a Thursday when we were at Chesterfield House. Every Thursday we went to go shopping. There was routine. When you're on the streets, there's no routine. It's like, fuck, what am I eating for dinner tonight? You don't worry about tomorrow. You're worrying about the minute. There's no food shopping in Thursday. It's just back to being hectic again. So what happens there is you get straight back into the old routine, hanging around with the same people, going then straight back into the same rubbish again. And thankfully through that time, I was hanging around a group of kids that weren't into drugs. And so I didn't go down the drug path in my teenage years at all. Like, we were drinking lots, like, you know, we like to drink. And but fortunately there was no drugs involved. So, and drug taking is a lot who you hang out with. It's a big influence of what you do is who you hang out with. And so we didn't touch any drugs, which was thankfully, because that could have stuffed me up. I mean, I got into the drugs later on, but I mean, if you start them too early, I think it can really damage you. You just went through life, yeah, struggling a bit. I mean, there was a time I was staying at a place called Forest Place. It was like a mall that they were doing, a new mall in Perth, and the construction was like for 2 years on this, like big Myer centres and, you know, Harris Scarfs and all this sort of stuff. So there was a group of 4 or 5 of us that were sleeping in through all the, you know, we're going there after work, like when they finished work, and shut it all, cage it all up. We had, you know, snips, get in, go sleep in bloody, you know, Myers change room or something that eventually was going to be, or whatever, you know, like, and then come out when they're working. We'd just be out, like, walking the streets of Perth, just getting into trouble. And a fella come up to me, and I thought I looked all right. Like, I like to think that I dressed all right, looked all right, and obviously I looked pretty shit house, because a fella come up to me one day it was raining, and gave me $20 and a pizza. And at the time I was like, oh, cheers, mate. Like, how good's that? It wasn't till 10, 15 years later that I realised just how big a thing that was. Like, I sort of like took it for granted. Like, I didn't take it for granted. I appreciated it. $20 was like $20 was amazing back then, and the pizza was beautiful. And but it wasn't until later on in life I thought, how good was that fella to do? It didn't change my life, but I remember it. I'm 48 years old now. I was 15 at the time, and I remember it as clear as day. Like, it's just something that stuck with me. And a lot of people did a lot of good things to me, and I stuffed up a lot of opportunities from people wanting to do good things to me, because people seen good in me. I didn't see good in me, but people did, and they were like throwing jobs at me, like, you know, you got to get your shit together. There was a copper in Midland who used to be my cricket coach, because I played cricket a lot from started when I was 8 to when I left home when I was 13. I was, you know, always a grade above than what I should have been, you know, like, so I was playing with the bigger boys sort of thing. And he was the cricket coach, this CIB detective dude, and he would pick me up and say, Ben, what are you doing? There's 2 paths here, man. You're going down the wrong path. You could be potentially you go play cricket for Australia. You know, this 15-year-old, but then you walk out and you just get straight back into the same routine again. Anyway, but yeah, I don't know where I was going with that.
So, what age are we at now where you're starting to see this turnaround?
No, I didn't see a turnaround till.
I mean, like the realization that, like, that pizza. How old was that?
15.
Okay.
That was a That was a bit of a reality check. It was, as in, like, I don't, for one, look what I think I look like. For someone just to come up and give you a pizza and $20, you've got to look homeless. Like, you know what I mean? Like, whether he'd seen me a few times, because I was in Perth. In winter, I slept in the streets in Perth, in hostels or whatever. In summer, I'd go down to the beach and spend mainly swimming all day, living like the surfy life sort of thing and sleeping in the dunes. And whether this bloke just seen me a few times, maybe, like on his travel, he was in a suit and everything, maybe he was just worked there and seen me in the same spot a few times. That's probably more what it was even thinking about. I haven't even thought about that before. And that's probably what it was, that he just seen me a few times and thought, well, this kid's obviously struggling a bit, he's just going to help me out, and he did. And like I said, well, that didn't change my life, but it took a while to realise how good that was. And but the years went by, and I ended up hanging out with a good mate that I went to school with. He knew my story, so I was staying at his house 3 or 4 nights, and then I'd stay at someone else's house 3 or 4 nights, and it just felt in the way, felt like, oh, I've overstayed my welcome, blah blah blah, and that's a shit feeling to feel. But not that they made me feel like that. That was just the way I felt the whole way through. And 20 when I come to Adelaide, me and the same mate were on the piss one night, as we did very regularly, and said, let's just go to Adelaide tomorrow. I was like, well, there's nothing here for us. And he had family and everything like that. He was just a good mate. He really was. He's a really good mate. And he goes, I'm up for it. I said, I've got nothing here. I mean, I've got family and stuff, but I'm not working.
Hang on a second.
I knocked it, didn't I?